Blockbuster was not about renting DVDs or streaming digital content. Blockbuster was about providing convenient access to media entertainment. And that's what they did so well. During the days of VHS, they made it convenient. You didn't have to go to the theater anymore. And you couldn't afford a VHS tape, so they were able to rent it. And then they pivoted to DVDs. They made it convenient to get DVDs. You didn't have to go to Walmart and buy one. You could rent one and take it back the next night.
Bootstrapped Unicorns, this may be my favorite episode and we haven't even filmed it yet. I need you to sit down, I need you to buckle up, and I need you to get ready because we have our first like official celebrity in my world on the show. Now, James is already laughing about it because he's a humble man, but think back to a time in your childhood when you put the VHS in and you opened the white and blue box and you set it to the side and you had to remember to please be kind and rewind, because James Keyes, author of a new book that we are going to talk about, his big claim to fame that affected your world directly is he was the CEO of Blockbuster. And if you were drinking a Slurpee while watching one of these videos, he's got a tie there too, because he was also, not at the same time, CEO of 7-Eleven. And when we talk about business, a lot of this show has been small business and medium business and people bootstrapping from nothing to something, but we rarely get opportunity to talk with people who have expertise with multi-billion-dollar companies doing things that we read about in the Wall Street Journal. Today is the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, one of the coolest people I know, James Keyes. Hey, welcome.
Happy to join you.
Awesome. And there's so much I want to talk about today, and we've already talked off camera about your passion for aviation and education, and I want to get there. But I have a feeling, like me, the whole audience is like, but talk about Blockbuster. And so if you could, and I read that Forbes article that I'm pretty sure you wrote about your time with 7-Eleven and your time with Blockbuster. And one of the most poignant things that I think will forever stick with me from that article is your redefinition of the term CEO. And I really feel like that attitude characterizes how you handled both pretty extreme situations. And so let's spend a few minutes talking about that experience as CEO with that new definition of CEO.
Sure. Yeah, I coined the expression in the course of working on the book. I coined the expression that change equals opportunity. It pretty much sums up my life, and I really stumbled on the idea that acronym CEO is really the role of the chief executive. It's to keep up with change. It's to embrace the good and the bad that happens and be able to manage through it, whether it's creating opportunity or dealing with crisis. It is the role of the CEO. Change equals opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like, you know, so many small businesses listen to this show. And, you know, in full disclosure, even my small business, I struggle sometimes to work on my business and not in my business. But the more we can raise out into that on and not in, if we have that clarity that we're looking for change opportunities to be able to be on the bleeding edge of change and be the leaders in our industry, I think it bodes well for a business to be there and not reactive.
It does. You know, it's all commerce if you think about it.
Yeah.
Starts and ends with something changing.
Yeah.
And that's what creates opportunity. There's a brand new need emerging. Mm-hmm. And someone satisfies that need, finds a better way to take care of a need that's out there, and they capitalize on that change and create a business around it.
Yeah.
We forget sometimes that, and even in a crisis mode, if the real estate market collapses, that may be bad for some, it may be great for others who have been waiting for the right opportunity to buy, and they come in and take advantage of that change at a time that allows them to buy an asset at a price they never could have gotten.
Right. And I should key in on, you use take advantage, and some people hear that, especially if they're the negative Nancys of the world, they go, oh, they're taking advantage. But really, I hear that as a positive thing. There's an opportunity afoot and you take advantage of the available opportunity. It's not harming other people. Unfortunately, in those situations, usually for whatever reason, they're already harmed. And that advantage often is bailing them out of being saddled with debt, saddled with other things. So I like that phrase, taking advantage, the way you said it.
Well, and there's another angle here that's important to delve into, because often what happens is a crisis will occur and people think it's the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a classic example. 7-Eleven did a leverage buyout in 1987, loaded up with $4 billion of debt at 17% interest. It's almost unthinkable. It's like
that's
buying
crazy.
a big company on your credit card, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was just a matter of time. By 1991, the company couldn't withstand the crushing burden of that kind of cash flow impact, so they had no choice but to restructure the company. Well, they had been in a period of 10 years of same-store sales decline. We restructured 7-Eleven, came out the other side with a brand new business plan, forced us to rethink the business, and on the other side, we enjoyed 10 years of same-store sales increases. Completely transforming the company, using data to make decisions where we hadn't in the past. And that crisis created in itself an opportunity. 7-Eleven may not have responded in a favorable way, but for that crisis that forced it to be introspective and to say, what did we do in the past that's not working? What do we do in the future that will help us do a better job of satisfying the convenience needs of the customer?
That's awesome. As a customer of 7-Eleven, and, I go there, my kids still love the Slurpees, it's still kind of a hallmark of American culture. I feel like, and I remember right on the corner of Calkins Road and Lehigh Station Road in Rochester, New York, suburb of Henrietta, there's a 7-Eleven, and I've been going there after baseball games as a kid, from 1988 all the way through 1998. That was my spot. And to this day, if I go back home, the building looks the same. The layout isn't changed much and the product hasn't changed much, but you just said there was a big change that happened. And so we as consumers, I don't feel like the 7-Eleven experience has changed so much that we would call it a wholly new company. So during that time frame, what was it that was the change?
Well, I hope the change in that case is something that would be invisible to you, not intuitive to you, but the use of data to manage that product assortment. So while you say the products are the same, yes, there's still a Slurpee there, there's still Cokes on the shelf, Pepsi's on the other shelf, but the ability to get into every SKU, every stock keeping unit, each individual item, and know how many units that item sells per day, even per hour in that store, gives them the ability to eliminate products that aren't sold, that just there's no demand in that individual neighborhood, and replace it with products that someone in that neighborhood wants. So I'll give you a classic example. Tesco, the British retailer, came to the United States. They were going to transform the convenience industry. They built 200 stores. Well, they had a model that they built in LA with all the products that are the same. And they said, we're going to know what LA customers want for convenience items. So they stocked the store. Well, they had churros, the wonderful Mexican treat, in a store in Beverly Hills. And they had scones in a store in Compton. And they just had they had the wrong products in the wrong stores.
Wow.
This was a use of data, but it was not a precise use of data. And that's the difference that the 7-Eleven model has. The ability to get into every individual store and realize that the convenience needs on one corner even. If you have two stores in New York City, there's one corner that has a completely different demographic, drive pattern, walk pattern, whatever. And the products that you need to stock for convenience in that individual location may be entirely different than one 2 blocks away. But with data, you can customize that assortment. That's the unique thing that made 7-Eleven go from 10 years of negative same-store sales to 10 years of positive same-store sales. And they continue on that trajectory today to continue to improve that decision-making model.
That's incredible. And that is the epitome of the term big data. I mean, because there's did I read 80,000 7-Elevens?
Yeah, just about 80,000 worldwide now. Pretty amazing.
I mean, to have that level of intel, even on one business, that's a lot to muster for a singular business, but to propagate that across 80,000 locations, and it's got to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of SKUs. And at this point, it's got to be real-time data.
It is. Yeah, we had a fun. This is back in the day, Bush versus Gore election. We had a fun time. I actually went to Anheuser-Busch because I wanted to use the lizard.
Oh yeah.
On the cups, and we were going to elect Louis the Lizard to president, but they wouldn't go for it. So
I think they failed, by the way. You had a brilliant idea there.
It would have been fun. Today it would have been even more relevant.
Oh
I
yeah.
think he may have won. But we built our cup program around different candidates, and we used our technology to be able to tell how many customers grabbed a Bush cup versus a Gore cup, and it was fantastic because if you think about the sample size, most polls, there are sample size of 1,000 people, 2,000 people. We had like 2 million people buying a cup of coffee, and they weren't going to take somebody's cup that they didn't support or didn't want. They didn't want to be seen with the other person's cup. So the numbers that we were able to, we had a deal in the USA Today where we would actually publish the results of this cup poll, if you will. And it was fascinating. And it came out, it was incredibly accurate with the actual results, even down to the dangling Chads in Florida and the closeness of that election. We were able to predict the outcome just by using the data. Now, 7-Eleven stopped doing that. I think they drew a lot of criticism at the time. But it was a fun example to show the power of that kind of scale. To be able to collect data that can tell you all kinds of things beyond just product movement.
Rarely am I completely mystified and wowed at something. You take an ad campaign, that's basically what it was. It was a campaign, and get that level of intuitive, valuable data is freaky. You might have actually just solved a national crisis. If we could take this and just get coffee drinkers to vote by sipping, we might have much better data, because it's repeat customers hitting over and over again. Do you really want Bush? Well, you're going to have 20 Bush coffees. Do you really want Gore? No, you better have 21 Gore coffees. Wow.
We could replace mail-in balloting with that.
And I'm such a coffee drinker. I was almost tempted to just drink coffee in our meeting here in our podcast. Decided not to, but I am all for this. We need change, and talk about change agents. Holy cow! So this is cool. You've done some neat stuff. I also am a little tickled that you said, "Oh, I just went to Anheuser-Busch to see if we could partner with their character." Those are, kind of dream bucket list moments for guys like me. I've been in the ad world for so many years. Every once in a while, my team will have an idea where it's like, oh yeah, if I could just get to Dr. Dre and talk to him about his headphones for a little bit. And it's like, CEOs at that level occasionally get that open door. So I have full jealousy on that one, and I'm not even going to hide it. That's super cool. Did you enjoy those moments?
I did. The power of scale is pretty amazing. And when you've got a global corporation like 7-Eleven or Blockbuster, the ability to do things and to do good, social good, is really pretty phenomenal. And I came up with the idea a long time ago that shareholder value and social good are not mutually exclusive. Because you can actually find ways to make money, whether it's Tom's, the shoes that they do so much good out there with trying to sell their shoes, and they use that as an angle to sell more shoes. And that's just one example. That's maybe the more obvious example, but everyday corporations have an opportunity to do good things in the community, and also to add shareholder value by doing it while doing it. And that's a win-win from that's classic 1 + 1 = 3 from my perspective. It was part of the privilege of being a chief executive is having the ability to do those kinds of things that are making money and you're satisfying your shareholder, you're doing your job, but you're also helping the world be a better place.
Gosh, I love that. And I think small businesses can adopt that same attitude. We might not be able to do it at the same scale, but I think the social good aspect is not removed from any of our businesses if we're willing to have the right attitude.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you one. I'll give you a free one to share with your entrepreneurs. I have been amazed at the power of internships. And small businesses are perfectly suited for this. So you've got kids living in a different world that don't have exposure to corporations, don't have exposure to business. I was one of those kids. I had no earthly idea what business was. It was the local factory. That's what I thought business was.
Wow.
I had no idea what happened in those big towers with people running around with white shirts and ties. It was foreign to me. And what we've been encouraging as part of this foundation that I created called Education is Freedom, and I encourage it in the book, for corporations, big and small, to step up and to realize the power that they have. So something as simple as an internship, hiring a high school student for the summer and putting them in a role that's a meaningful role, not just sitting there making copies. I guess they don't make copies much anymore, but
well, my friends over at AD Solutions, the Sharp dealer around the corner, would disagree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. But they could do that. But anything that they can do that will be productive, you don't have to pay them much money because it's a better alternative than working at McDonald's for the summer. They have an opportunity, you have an opportunity to open their eyes to an entirely new world. Some of these kids have never taken an elevator in their life.
Yeah.
Because they'll live in a different part of town. They've never dressed in a sport jacket to go to work. And what you do is you open their eyes to what could be and give them an incentive to go back and want to work hard and learn more and put in the time, whatever it takes, to be able to be an entrepreneur or to be able to be a corporate executive.
Yeah, I love that. So you opened the door for Education is Freedom and the foundation and the book, and I let's go down that road. But I'm going to promise the viewers and listeners right now, we're not going to forget that Blockbuster existed, and we'll come full circle and we'll ask some question about that. But so you've written this book, Education is Freedom, and I've listened to a lot of your content on TikTok and some of the other places where I'm following you, and you seem very, very clear that education is a key to unlock a wonderful future for anyone who's willing to hold that key. And in some moments, it seems like you are a go to college guy. And I kind of want to go down that road because our listeners know that I'm kind of on the fence about that. And after chatting with you, I know you are too. So tell me about the book. Actually, can I ask a simple question? Why did you write it?
Sure. Because I was the beneficiary of education. Now, in my case, it was more of a formalized education, but even after graduating from normal 4-year college and then graduate school, I realized I need to keep learning. And so I'm still learning today.
And that makes sense, yeah.
Because I train in a jet, and I had to learn every step of the way, from a single engine to a twin engine to a turboprop. And it was all a path, a learning path. And learning opens up opportunity to do anything you want to do. So, yeah. And to your point about is it a formal education or not? So I put in the book the subtitle. I struggled with the subtitle. It's probably more important than the title sometimes.
It can be.
But the idea that the future is in your hands is meant to be literal, because there is more power now in one of these devices than I had ever dreamed of having access to. I had a set of borrowed encyclopedias for my knowledge base. So can you learn anything without ever having to go to college? Absolutely.
Sure.
And should you? Absolutely, because knowledge is power. Ultimately, the more you know, the more you can do. college, no college. Now, I do worry about those kids who need a more structured training environment.
Same.
Some of us don't need that. I don't know if I would have been okay on my own. Because I don't know if I would have had the determination or the tools to go learn on my own. I don't think we had that access back then that we have today. But I don't know if I had the discipline either. School gave me a more structured environment, more formalized discipline. But what I worry about is the trap that Peter Thiel and others now are saying, I'll even give you an incentive not to go to college. You don't need to go into those places with all those liberal ideas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a disservice to a large number of people who do need the structure and need the formalized background that it gets. Not all of us know what we want to do. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do until after leaving college and then even into graduate school. I had no clue. But I had the breadth of knowledge to give me multiple different paths. And that was what was important.
So I wonder how we as a society deal with let's take basket weaving 101, right? It's the kind of the classic joke class. If I were to go to college, and let's pick one of the most expensive out there, I'm going to go to Harvard and I'm going to take basket weaving, which of course is not ever going to happen because you don't get into Harvard without having that beautiful big future that they see. And they don't even offer that, I'm sure. But if they did, and I was going to spend all that money for something that I couldn't make money back with, I just fell into a trap. And I think everybody knows at least one story of somebody who went and got this crazy cool sounding degree, but they're kind of unemployable based on the degree, but they still have to pay it back. And so there's a bit of a myth and a lore to that in our society that people are starting to push back and go, oh, you should go into the trades only. It's your only real option. You got to save your money. And then unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, that's always the caveat. Doctors, lawyers, rocket scientists.
Right.
I think we've got something broken in that conversation, and I feel like you might have figured it out. How should we look at this dynamic?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, everybody is trying to be a specialist now, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be a specialist. I don't need college because I'm going to go do this. And my concern about that is we are in the information age. AI is here. It's only going to expand.
Yep.
AI is going to take any given skill, any given trade, and go deep, deep, deep. And I'm not sure humans will be able to match the ability of AI to go as deep as it will. What humans can do better than AI is go broad. The classic Greek philosophers encouraging humanities, including encouraging philosophy, encouraging logic, all of these other sort of soft skills, if you will, that broaden your knowledge. And I think in the information age, the breadth of knowledge will be more important than the depth of one's knowledge, because you can always replace that with technology. And that's why I think a lot of people are missing when they're thinking, I'm just going to go specialize right now. I don't need all that fluffy stuff. But even basket weaving can teach you some hand-eye coordination motor skills that there's nothing that you can learn that's a complete waste, even though we like to point to it as how silly is that, right? So I think that breadth of knowledge is important. And then let me go back to one other really important thing, and this is when I get into these debates a fair amount with some talk show hosts who are just hell-bent to say college isn't necessary, and they actually encourage people not to waste their time. Here's what I characterize it as. In today's world, we're in this cusp of technology's coming, and 5 years, 10 years, probably 10 or 20, we'll have other measurement criteria with technology. We'll be able to use AI to teach you in the way you learn, and we'll also be able to measure your intelligence in a whole different way than we do today, which is traditional bell curve, SAT testing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? But that's all we have today. So I hated those standardized tests, but they served a purpose for the last 100 years. Well, that will be replaced over time with technology. But let's deal with practical reality. You're an entrepreneur. You say, I don't need any of that stuff. I don't need any of that college. Well, at some point, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you may need to raise $1 million for your business, $2 million for your business. The very first thing that banker is going to do is look at your resume. Now, you may be the outlier that's successful enough that you've been so wildly successful you can borrow $10 million without having any formal education because you've proven yourself. But those are going to be the 1 or 2%. Question is, what happens to the 80 or 90% who haven't had that success? They don't have the traditional credentials. Will they be able to borrow the money? And if their entrepreneurial venture doesn't work, will they be able to get a job that they're satisfied with down the road? For that reason, I'm still encouraging, but for those who have the confidence to be wildly successful and know what they want to do, that's perfectly fine because the trades are fabulous. I could go be a pilot because I love being a pilot and I'd be happy being a pilot. And that's a trade and I don't need a college education for that. But if I washed out at some point, boy, it'd be nice to be able to fall back on something else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you predict a resurgence of the liberal arts now that AI is coming up? Do will your book be a catalyst to help people understand that concept of breadth?
I hope it is. Unfortunately, I'm banging up against the wall. Largely, a lot of tech people are saying, the liberal arts is just a waste of time. Just go straight into technology. And they more than anybody else should know the importance of breadth of knowledge because they're building the devices that will go deep, that will replace human interventions. And so I do hope the liberal arts come back into vogue. I think we're up against a pretty steep hill now with the perception that it's warm, fuzzy stuff and it's just not as important.
Yeah, well, and the price of education keeps going up in a way where I think is a little. It will continue to have a challenge because it is expensive, especially the college I went to. I just recently looked at their pricing and I was like, oh my, it's been 25 years, but that's more than the inflation rate for sure. So I think we as a society have to solve this problem over time. Yeah. I actually have a degree in philosophy. You mentioned the philosophers, and it would be heartbreaking to see that leave our purview. If nothing else, I became an excellent honed writer because I was put through the rigor of the logic and inquiry to be able to even have conversations around philosophy.
Yeah.
And if we just lean on ChatGPT to write for the rest of our future, I think we're going to lose eloquence and intuition.
Yeah. And the ability to have critical thinking, to be able to dissect what ChatGPT says and understand truth from fiction because it's a model. And
that's right. That's
critically important. But let me debunk this myth, and I do believe it's a myth of college being that much more prohibitively expensive. When I was making $1.25 an hour at McDonald's flipping burgers and college was $7,500, do the math. It was prohibitively expensive. I could not afford to go to college. I figured it out.
That's a good point.
And here's what, no one's doing this. I'm a business guy. I look at things, apples and apples. Put today's college cost in dollars back then. My $7,500 would be $55,000 today.
Okay. It's actually not that far off then.
It's not that far off. And I'll give you another factor. There weren't anywhere near the endowments. My own college, undergraduate school, had an endowment. I don't even know if they had an endowment when I went to school. So they couldn't afford to get a lot of scholarship money. Today, they have over $1 billion in endowment. And that endowment is used to do something that they call a discount rate. And all colleges have a discount rate. So they advertise $80,000. And if somebody comes from China and they want to come to school there, they're going to pay $80,000. But for someone who can't afford $80,000, they discount it down. And at the college that I went to undergrad, their discount rate is like 47%.
That's massive.
So it's massive. But it's a best kept secret. So all these kids are out there saying, I can't go to school. And the irony is the kids that are best equipped to get access to those scholarship dollars that are available are the ones saying I can't afford it. And then they've got other people that are wealthy saying, no, you can't afford it.
Wow.
So it's a vicious cycle. So that's why I've been trying to debunk this myth that it's prohibitively expensive. I don't think it is. I believe that apples and apples, it is no more expensive than it was back then. But it feels like it is. So we've got to try to, get rid of that narrative so it doesn't continue to discourage people. I could have, this is so meaningful to me because I was one of those kids that was discouraged. People said, you can't afford it. Who do you think you are?
Oh, that's
Literally
harsh.
Oh, I refused to call him a stepfather because he was my mother's boyfriend, but
I get it.
And here's a guy that should have been an important influence in my life, and he literally said, who do you think you are? That is not for you.
It's so cool that you found your way clear to buck that, because you know how many kids would have said, well, apparently I am nothing, ergo I will bottom seek the way you view me.
Yeah, you're so easily influenced as a child that when somebody says you can't do something, oh, okay, I guess not. It's not for me. But that's what this book is about. It's about availability is there for anyone, especially today, especially with the power of technology. And even if you're not destined to do the formal education process, the power to learn anything, the power to have the breadth of information is right there in your fingertips. Literally, the future is in your hands, both individually and collectively, because stepping back from this, where are we as society if people don't decide that they want to continue to learn? We're going to have a population that maybe is not as able to make informed decisions as we wish everybody would.
Yeah, I keep reminding, so every once in a while I run into friends who are, I won't even tell you where I am politically, but they're so on the right that they're ready to like defund public education. And I'm like, no, I need my neighbor's kid to be able to think critically. And no education is such a reverse that I can't stomach that. So can we keep funding the public schools for a while, at least until you magically figure it out? This is an important conversation. And, hey, out of curiosity, who is the ideal reader for your book?
It started out to be young people, but as I started working through the book and as I started getting it out and having people read it, I discovered it's really for everyone. And that's not good marketing to be able to say your target market is everybody,
right?
But it's kind of true for the people in the latter stage of their life. The guidelines in there for lifelong learning. And a reminder of critical thinking, because a lot of the polarization you just described comes from people just taking at face value what they see. And they, especially in the social media world, they're going to be fed information that meets their interests. And so critical thinking is so essential today for the older generation to be able to make better decisions, whether it's electing a candidate or just in your life. So that's a critical element of it, and what I encourage older people to do, because it also enriches your life. The idea that learn a language, take on a new hobby or skill, and your life will be richer. You'll have more freedom. For those in the middle, I've discovered entrepreneurs are all over this. They're especially jumping on that idea of change equals opportunity, the acronym CEO, and they're jumping on this roadmap to help them in their business, in their early business life, be more successful by continuing to learn. And then finally, the last audience is that original target that I had, those young people that I want to say, hey, come on, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I didn't have the money, I didn't have the intelligence, I figured it out, but let me help you. Here's what I tell myself when I was 17, 18 years old. Let me help you. I'll share that secret with you so it's an easier path for you. And what I want is my ultimate goal is to have this be a gift book. I want an older person to read it and go, yeah, wow, I really need to dial up my critical thinking skills. And I need to really think more with curiosity and creativity. And then when I finish the book, I want to give it to this 20-year-old that I know needs it, because they're not sure where they want to go, and they're not sure if they can. I want to give them the confidence by reading this book that they can do anything they want to do.
That's awesome. Well, it was something you didn't know about me. I'm actually on the school board in Kissimmee, Florida, and a lot of my friends are educational leaders. And so I'm going to personally take the step of introducing them to your text so that they can get in a position of gifting it to the right people that have either been previous students or current students or peers, fellow teachers. I just had lunch with Principal Jim Long at the Gateway High School last week, and we're just talking about, what it means to have a changing school and different opportunities with new tech rooms and all of these things that kids can have. And he keeps up with the kids as they graduate and move on. And I'll bet a good chunk of them need this book and this reminder at all the ages he has influence in. So Jim, expect that book. I'll get it for you.
Well, that's terrific. I appreciate it. And when you share the book, let them know that this is the surprise I had is how high schools and especially colleges have embraced this book and weaving it into some of their programs. What they described to me is, Jim, you've captured the meta skills. You've captured those soft skills that we don't teach. We don't really teach confidence. We don't teach the importance of embracing change. We don't teach character and the importance of humility and gratitude and all those elements of character that make it up. So what these skills are, skills that will help that young person in their academic journey and give them the confidence and give them the tools, the softer skills that they need to be successful.
It's amazing how soft skills are such a hot button. I did a documentary tour through the Heartland, and we were funded through a grant to feature CTE content manufacturing in the Heartland. And I had the privilege of interviewing CEOs of wide varieties of manufacturing businesses. And they always said the same thing. We have a skills gap widening. We have a lack of candidates to fill available jobs. And we are not afraid to hire people who do not know the first thing about what they're about to do. We can train for that. What we can't train for is soft skills. Showing up on time, caring about your job, not cussing out your worker, not smoking, a joint over your work, showering, it's amazing how, and it makes some people sound like they're complete degenerates, and that's not really necessarily it. But there's been, I don't know, the Renaissance personality that I think some people previously had is less common. And so they were really struggling with that. So if your book is, poised to re-enliven a passion for some of these soft skills or bring an awareness to the need, my God, we need to put one in every school principal's hands across the U.S. because this is what will change the course of an American future.
I really appreciate you identifying that opportunity because it really is. And if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to wrap up with this idea that all the way back to our founding fathers, Jefferson noted the importance of an educated populace to the ability to sustain a democracy into the future. Alexis de Tocqueville came over from France in the 1800s and said, the unique thing about America is they recognize that self-determination is tied completely to an educated populace. And here we are today, forgetting the very premise that we started with as a nation. And if you look at the polarization and all of the fear that's permeated all of our politics, our society, that fear stems from a lack of understanding, basically, an absence of critical thinking and creative thinking and reasoning that we can return to. We all learned it in grammar school. And so
we did.
While these principles in this book may seem like common sense, I know it sounds a bit Pollyannish, but I do believe that knowledge is the secret to a sustainable democracy and a happier individual, because freedom is what it's all about. Not about making money, getting rich.
Right.
Those are byproducts. It's about being free.
I love this. So I know you have a post. We have to hit a certain time because I know you've got other commitments. But I did make a promise as we were going here that I would ask something about Blockbuster. So could you just, what was your favorite thing about Blockbuster? We know it's not here anymore. And I know the brand is actually owned by another company and maybe it could come back. Like I know all that stuff. And if you would do me the honor, I'd love to have you back on eventually. But
I would love
Blockbuster, tell me something.
Yeah, no, very, very, very simply, Blockbuster was not about renting DVDs or streaming digital content. Blockbuster was about providing convenient access to media entertainment. And that's what they did so well. During the days of VHS, they made it convenient. You didn't have to go to the theater anymore. And you couldn't afford a VHS tape, so they were able to rent it. And then they pivoted to DVDs. They made it convenient to get DVDs. You didn't have to go to Walmart and buy one. You could rent one and take it back the next night. And then streaming video came. Blockbuster was prepared. We had something called Total Access. We had stores if you wanted to go to the store because it was such a great Friday night experience, as you know. We had DVDs by mail, just like Netflix. But ours, if you didn't like the movie, you could bring it back to the store. Big advantage. We had kiosks, just like Redbox. We partnered with NCR and created kiosks. And we had streaming video. I acquired a company called MovieLink for video on demand, and we renamed it Blockbuster On Demand. We were early. We had the largest content of new movies that existed in the world because MovieLink was created by 5 of the 6 major studios. So Blockbuster had a massive competitive advantage in providing access to media entertainment, convenient access, not a little media entertainment, not a bunch of old movies, a couple of cool TV shows, all movies. We were the aggregator. And that's what I loved about Blockbuster is it was the consummate convenience offering. It was the 7-Eleven for media access.
I was just going to say that. You actually found your way to lead 2 convenience stores. Look at that.
That's exactly what it was. So I encourage people, and I'll leave you with this. I encourage people to understand the Blockbuster story because there are so many learnings in what happened to Blockbuster. Just to say, oh, they didn't keep up with technology is not correct. And you gloss over all of the richness of learnings that happened from Blockbuster. Every entrepreneur should know the Blockbuster case study inside out because it's all about managing cash flow during turbulent times and what happens when interest rates double and triple and how do you manage through that kind of crisis. The Blockbuster story is a very, very educational story for everyone to learn.
All right, so I've got to have you back on. I want to hear it from you. I want to understand. Cash is king. I've seen you write it a million times. I want to learn about that. And I also kind of want to talk about planes. I will tell you really quickly that my 55th birthday, which is 12 and a half years away, I plan on buying a Cirrus Vision jet. Right now they have Model 2 out, which I love. I'm not ready to go, but I want to be able to pilot it myself. So my heart is in the place that you're living in because you can fly these things. And I want to learn from you about what you think is the best, consumer jet on the market. And we can talk about that.
Sure. Absolutely. Do it. Learn. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to steer you toward a twin engine jet.
Okay.
I prefer 2 of those little babies turning around versus 1.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
I wouldn't ever have to pull one, but we'll talk about that whole different subject. Let me leave you with knowledge is power, of course, and flying is freedom.
Woo!
Ultimately, knowledge is freedom. Education is freedom.
All right, Bootstrapped Unicorns, I have had so much fun today. James, thank you so much for being on the show. I will have you back as soon as possible, and I'll let you sign off. Next episode, as you, my audience, know, I have no clue who's going to be on next. We're going to have another great person with a great story. I am going to learn. That's what I'm here to do. I learn from people who are way smarter than me and have great tales to tell. And I hope you're sitting in the same seat with me, that you're learning along. And oh my gosh, I'm flying high today. Tony is the producer in house today. Feeling good off of this one? I know I'm feeling. All right. All right. So see you on the next episode.